What is up, Ascenders? My name is Brian Henry, and I'm the founder of the Ascend Academy, an online platform, school, and community that is uniting and activating light workers. If you believe you might be one of the souls that have come to this planet at this time to serve the awakening and the ascension of our planetary collective consciousness, we may be looking for you. To learn more about the Academy and to initiate your activation, head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com.
Welcome to your awakening journey. Today's destinations include higher consciousness and actualized potential. If all ascenders could now please be seated in a comfortable meditative posture, we're about to ascend. You are now arriving at your host, Brian Henry.
What is up, Ascenders? Welcome back to another episode of the Awaken podcast. And if you are now tuning in for the very first time, maybe, I want to welcome you. My name is Brian Henry. I'm the founder of the Ascend Academy and your host to the show. You would have heard the invitation at the beginning of the episode, but I do feel called to share it once again. The Ascend Academy is uniting and activating light workers. Upon enrollment into the program, our members initiate the activation process, which is a 4-week process that activates in an individual a higher state of being, a higher expression of self, and a higher experience of reality, all of which is found in the activation of one's higher purpose. If you feel called to support others in shifting and ascending to greater states in whatever way that this feels true to you, because you have a unique gift to give, and it's in giving this gift that you will find the sense of fulfillment and meaning that is available to you. The grandest sense of fulfillment is found on the path of your higher purpose. And so if this is something you're ready to activate, I do invite you to check us out at the Ascend Academy, which you can find at togetherweascend.com/academy. Anyways, let's jump into what we got going on for this episode, because it was a good one. And that's because I was joined by my good friend, Daniel Scranton. Daniel is a gifted channel that has quite a bit of experience channeling a host of different collectives and higher beings. But namely, these days, he is channeling a daily message from the Arcturian Council, the 9D Arcturian Council, which I personally have found a great deal of benefit in reading on a daily basis, because I actually have Daniel marked as See First on Facebook, where I can see the message that he comes through with each day at the top of my feed. And I hope this speaks to how much I feel a sense of resonance in what he's been sharing. So I do recommend you go check him out at danielscranton.com. He's also a contributor to the Ascenders blog, community blog, at togetherweascend.com. So you'll find his stuff over there. Again, I definitely recommend you check out the channeled messages that he's bringing through. But I do want to jump into this episode now, so you can get a little bit of a taste of Daniel himself. That kind of sounds... No, we're not going to go there. Let's jump into the episode. This is my conversation and interview with Daniel Scranton. I hope you enjoy it. We are live for another episode of the Awaken podcast. And today, we're streaming on a Saturday. This doesn't usually happen. I think this is probably the first time I'm doing a podcast episode on a Saturday night. And there can only be one reason for that. The guest that I'm joined with today. I'm going to start things off with this. I think it was maybe 4 months ago when I invited on Mr. Daniel Scranton. And he expressed his interest, as he has in the past. He's, as you all will soon find out if you hadn't already, he's someone that is deeply committed to service to the all. So of course, Daniel expressed his interest to be on the show, and his response was, "Yeah, I'm interested, except I don't have time till September." This was way back, I think, in May. Yeah, my next opening is in September. If you'd like to book that in. So Daniel, before actually, I do want to properly introduce you, or actually better yet, I would like you to properly introduce yourself. Um, if you hadn't yet heard about Daniel, first let me say you're welcome for introducing you to him. You're gonna be glad that I did. And Daniel, why don't you give us just a little bit of a quick introduction to whatever it is that Daniel Scranton really means.
Well, at this point, I am a verbal channel first and foremost. That's what people most know me for, is the channeled transmissions I bring through almost every day. I've actually cut back to 6 days a week of doing them. Only 6 days, because I have a baby, and I want to be able to spend more time with her on my days off, so I don't want to be up late. I'm usually up till 2 a.m. because I'm doing a new video every night and then having to transcribe it and post it and do all the little trimmings I do to it to get it out there. And so I've been channeling the Arcturian Council, this group, this ninth dimensional group, since about 4 years from now ago. I mean, I started, and prior to that, I channeled all kinds of different beings: Hathors, archangels, Pleiadians, a fairy, a group that calls themselves the Creators, the Founders, Kuan Yin, like a bunch of different beings that eventually I just decided, hey, why not start channeling Arcturians now? It seems like the timing is right. And so I did, and it's been going so well with the daily transmissions with them that I've just stuck with them. And I don't know if I'll ever switch to another group that I'll bring through on a almost daily basis. But I've been channeling for about 10 years now, and in that time, I've also discovered an ability to channel tones, overtones, light language. Of course, all my movements that you see when I channel are also channeled. So yeah, it's just something that happened all of a sudden 10 years ago, spontaneously, and it's changed my life and led me to where I am today, which is a place where I feel very happy.
I definitely sense in the vibration that you put out in each of your channelings that you thoroughly enjoy what it is you do, and I think that's actually something that we're gonna talk a bit about, because I know that's a message that that the Arcturians are constantly pointing us back to. But as you're speaking there, I'm just boom, 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 questions, and there's just so many directions we can go. So I'm gonna start with something a little bit more fun. You didn't have a slot available for 4 months from the day that I asked you. Now, I know you mentioned having she's a baby girl, right?
Yeah, 14 months.
14 months. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I think maybe the last time we spoke, probably just before she was born, or maybe just after she was born. We might talk a little bit about her as well.
Okay.
But what keeps you so occupied with your time other than the baby? Is that time being spent with clients? Do you find yourself would you describe yourself to be someone that's very busy, packed schedule kind of guy?
Yeah, you waited 5 months or 4 months, and a client would have waited 4 months too. So that's where my calendar is in terms of, like, when you get a session with me, right now you have to wait till February to actually get it.
Okay. And is that because I
only work 2 hours a week?
Okay,
No,
so
no,
I'm
I'm
kind of
just kidding.
curious.
I work harder and longer hours than I ever have in this field.
Can I ask like just roughly how many? Because
It's about,
there's
it's
some.
about a 40-hour-a-week job now.
Okay, wow, and this is mostly time spent in front of clients, correct?
No, I would say well, yeah, mostly, yeah, more than half. Yeah,
Okay.
more
The
than
other
half.
half is that content?
Well, I do the recordings that I'll do after we're done here that are
Uh-huh.
like my weekly recordings. Oh, I also have people who they get they buy mantra requests or personal messages from their guide requests.
Hmm.
I and then I do the nightly thing that I do is like 6 hours a week, let's say, of
Okay.
time spent. There's a lot of like emailing and stuff like that too, but I'd say on average in a week I would meet with clients for or classes or group sessions for 25 hours, something like
Okay.
that.
So here's where I'm going with this because there's actually a strong personal interest in this topic for just how it applies to me, and something that I'm trying to kind of get a handle on in the way that feels in greatest alignment with me. Now, would you agree that a reoccurring message that not just the Arcturians have, but um, many other higher dimensional beings kind of point us into is focus upon doing that which is of your highest excitement in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just make being really, really tuned in to what is it that I want to do in this here and now. That's something that I'm personally finding myself being guided into. I'm constantly hearing that message, whether that be through someone channeling like you or just what I'm feeling in my heart. Now, how does that fit in with being someone that is schedule oriented, calendar oriented, that has this plan in place, that is obviously involved with using linear time um, in their human experience? How do you find that you balance
Mm-hmm.
or bring together both that yes, there's a plan, there's structure, there's a calendar that I'm committed to, right? I'm sure if you have a client booked in, you're making it to that session. So there's that forethought that yes, there's an appointment on my calendar at this time. But then there's also this notion that there's only here and now. How do you find yourself bringing those two things together in a way that feels in alignment for you and those two things being compatible with one another?
Well, I have to, sometimes I look at my life and the way that I do spend my time, and I think even if I wasn't a very regimented, schedule oriented person, I would still find myself doing the same things every day. I'd want to be spending time in nature. I'd want to be spending time with my daughter, my wife. I'd want to be doing some channeling. So, and I'd want to just chill and watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever. And the fact that my day is just set up so that I do those things in certain blocks of time, it does make it less spontaneous, but it also amounts to like the life that I chose for myself. It's the life that I created, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy living it, even though I don't wake up on Monday morning and go, what do I feel like doing? I go, I got a client at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the big thing that stands out here for me is that the calendar still fits in with the life that you want to be living.
Yeah. and I want to get to a point where I can work less, of course, because of primarily now of my daughter and just wanting to be around her and knowing that that's the greatest joy that I get out of life now is being with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that then lights a fire under my butt to make changes that I need to make in order to be able to
Great
spend
then.
less time working.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you ever find yourself in a space where what you feel like you should be doing and what you feel like you truly want to be doing are two different things?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
just in the
actually
moment. Just in the moment,
in the
though.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like it's not that I don't want to ever do it. It's just that maybe in that moment I'm tired and I'd rather just go lie down, meditate, lie in the grass, lie in the hammock, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because I don't always have the energy level that I'd like to have.
Mm-hmm. It's more of an energy level kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes it's a like, wouldn't it be nice if I got to go to the forest today, but I'm working a full 8 hour day, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it's like by the time I get done working, there's no more sunlight to go to the forest, you know? Or it's time
Right.
to start dinner. So like, you know, that there's that there, and that's some like that gives me something, like I said, to sort of aim for now, something to manifest in my life is more time to be walking in the forest with wife and daughter.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why this is of such interest to me is because I I'm very much the idea that we can come into a place in our lives where we're always doing exactly what we want to be doing with this here and now moment. Again, I know you've seen this more than I have. It's a piece of guidance and a message that we're constantly being pointed to. Now, what I'm hearing in you describe the type of experience you're having, and you're certainly someone that I look up to in terms of the way that you've not only in the way that you're serving others, but just the business and the very very human tangible things that you're playing in. You're doing an incredible job with your business and the way that you serve through that. Um, it's very interesting to hear someone like you that's very much connected to this guidance to speak about how there still seems to be some work involved with kind of getting to that point. And I'm enjoying that because personally I've very much been in a space where it feels like you need to get a little bit more grounded in the reality that you're living in, the very human type circumstances that we're in, and it can't just, at least right now, what's the highest alignment is being real that sometimes there's going to be those moments where there's what should I be doing, and I kind of feel like I want to be doing this.
Yeah.
um what's your piece on how we approach that situation where those two things feel like they're at odds with one another? Again, keeping in mind that there's this what I feel like is a experience of a higher frequency in which you don't really ever feel like you're doing something you don't want to be doing. Would you agree that's something that we can be in?
I'd say that's the description. That's probably the best description of what the fifth dimension is, or fourth density. Um, Ascension, the shift. that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting to that time where everything is synchronicity. Every meeting happens because of vibrational alignment, not because of obligation. People are free to do what they want because they're not worrying about survival. They're not. They don't need to make money to have a roof over their head and food. And so we are all moving towards that, and we can live in that dimension now. But we won't stay there for very long because we're meant to be doing this as a group. We're not meant to leave everyone else behind who is still killing themselves working an 80-hour-a-week job just to scrape by because they have a family to feed. And we're meant to be a part of that shift with them. And that's why those of us who are aware of this, as much as you keep hearing about people talking about, well, the event's going to happen tomorrow or next week or the December, or it's like people are so eager and anxious to just get there and be done with this. And there's a process. There's a joy of the journey. So like I was saying to you before, now I have this goal, this thing that I want to manifest in my life, which is more time to be spent with my daughter as she is in these years now where it's so great just to be in her presence. So now I get to move from where I am to where I want to go without having to create a portal or a time machine where I can just jump right to that place. But instead I get the joy of the journey of getting there. And then once I'm there, I'll be able to look back at the journey and say, wasn't that cool? Wasn't it great the way that happened? And that opportunity came along and that person and this happened and that happened. And then I got to the place I want to be. Mm-hmm. So there's that we still get to experience now that we won't be experiencing as fifth dimensional beings, because we'll just be like, oh, you want to have that experience? Okay, there it is, right there. Mm-hmm. So there's no more journey. There's no more anticipation. There's no more of that like, look what I did, look what I created, because everybody will be doing it and everybody will be creating all the time, and it will become like the air that we breathe that we just take for granted until we don't have it. But, that's not going to happen once we shift. We'll all just be creating instantaneously what we want to experience.
So I really want to emphasize a sentence that you used there, a phrase that you used there that I think there's just so much power in, and it's we get to. We get to. There's just so much importance in looking upon, well, just about anything like that, but specifically to this context here, we get to experience 3D. We get to experience time. And looking upon that as a great thing rather than something to conquer, to beat, to move beyond. What's her name?
Polyandra.
Polyandra
with a C.
Yeah. Nice. Incredible. I'm not usually a cat person, I'll be honest, but that's a cute cat.
And if you watch my videos, she walks across the screen on a lot of them.
Yeah, I have seen it.
Mostly see her tail in front of me.
I'm tuning into that. What's a cat tail crossing the screen? I'm feel into that.
Good luck. I don't know.
I like that. I resonant. That feels in resonance. So I wanted to ask, although you kind of already, I think, brought us to the answer, but I'm gonna bring up the question. We can be 5D now. We can be in that fifth dimensional frequency right now. That's a choice that we make. And I believe personally that it's the belief that that's the choice that we can make, then that's a ability that we have that allows for the allows for that shift, allows for us to embody that frequency. Now, you said something that kind of just like light bulbs for a second, and it's that we're going back to a frequency of a lower nature, the 3D experience, so that we can help. And well, I think you said so that we can go through this shift together. That's what we've come here for.
Yeah.
And so that starts to kind of make things make a lot more sense for me personally, because it's, well, if we can choose the fifth dimensional frequency right now. By the way, side note, I also want to go back to something you started going into with us, which was describing what that really even means. I think there's going to be a lot of value in hearing you speak a little bit further to that. But anyways, I was saying, if the fifth dimensional frequency is something that we can choose right here, right now, how does it serve us to have these other concepts, these other ideas, such as a calendar, such as a schedule, that on that plane of thought isn't compatible with the perspective that there's only here and now. So I think you can see how a fifth dimensional perspective is at odds with the idea that there's going to be a tomorrow where I'm going to be doing this thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but you don't have to think about it. You get to be present. You can be present and be like, oh, I have an appointment, as opposed to like, I've been thinking about this since my day off, and dreading the fact that I've got to get up tomorrow and start working with clients again. So really, that's where you have the opportunity. I have the opportunity to be present with my daughter when I'm with her, or thinking about what I need to do for my business,
You
and
can
that's
still
where,
be present.
yeah, you can be present. I can wake up, and in fact, every morning I do check my phone and be like, all right, who's my first client with? What are we doing? How long is it? Is it Skype or phone? And that's, I don't think about what my day is going to be like usually the day before. I just know I've got clients, and and that's also something that I can look at as a real blessing, to be in demand like that, because there was a time when you could call me up that day and say, I want to have a session. I'd be like, okay, what time? Because I was not that in demand.
Let me just throw in a congratulations for the success you're seeing. I mean, what really stands out to me when you say something like that is you're serving on a high level, right? That's what I hear. You're saying you're seeing success, you're in demand, you have a packed calendar. What I'm hearing is someone that's putting out a ton of value, that is serving people on a high level, because that's the law right there, right? It's a giving and receiving. So let me just actually emphasize that point. The more that we give, the more that we get. And I know from everything that I see and feel in you, you're someone that is giving quite a bit to us. So I had mentioned this before we jumped on the call, but I do want to say it to the world. Daniel, I have a deep respect and appreciation for all that you're doing in service to our collective, and you're going to hear me say that over and over again. So I hope you don't get tired of hearing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, yes, let's go in that direction.
There's something about this concept too that it's been in my head over and over, like I've got to get to it at some point. So let me just choose this moment.
Please.
And that is that the teaching we're really talking about, of following your highest excitement. That's one of it. One of what we're really talking about, and the other one is being present.
Mm-hmm.
But following your highest excitement is like the meat of the statement. But there's also some like lettuce and tomato with it that goes to the best of your ability. So
Uh-huh.
I to the I follow my excitement to the best of my ability, but I still have to go to the dentist sometimes. Like I had tooth pain because I didn't go for 20 years, and I finally went, and I had to have a lot. And the work is finally done on these choppers right here, these chompers. But I had to go through like 2 years of dentist appointments to clean up all the mess
And
that I
going to those
made.
appointments didn't feel like your highest excitement.
Well, I didn't want to deal with, there was a couple of things. I didn't want to deal with like the drugs that I knew that they'd give me if they found a cavity. And I didn't want to deal with like the fear that they sometimes instill in you and say, well, you better get this done or else.
Mm-hmm.
But, I finally was at that point too, where not only did I have to do something, but I knew that I wanted to find a holistic dentist that would work with me. And, they do cool stuff at this place where I go. Like sometimes using lasers where they don't need to shoot you up with any drugs. And, they ozonate their instruments instead of putting like harsh chemicals on them to clean them. And they worked with me on my bite and like how to get my bite, because at first they were like braces or Invisalign. I was like nope and nope, and then they wound up building my bite up by adding crowns in the back so that my front teeth were no longer eroding each other away by constantly mashing into each other. So I wound up spending a lot of money and all that stuff that I didn't want to do. But, if I want to be able to have teeth and chew food, there's certain
It was
things
still the right
that
move.
I have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and paying taxes, I still have to do that. And it takes
Mm-hmm.
up a lot of my time sometimes just to, get all the write-offs in order and, contact the accountant. And it's like, it's stuff I don't want to do. So I do what I want to do to the best of my ability at this point.
Right. So, the big message I'm hearing is, and again, this is a very much actually more recently I've been giving a lot of thought to being in this type of space where there feels like there's a difference between highest excitement and what I should be doing. And I use that word should in quotation marks because I don't believe in shoulds. I don't believe there's anything that we should be doing. I believe that we have our free will and we get to choose what we make of this moment. We get to choose what path that we take. So this, I do believe that the phrasing and the notion of follow your bliss, move into your highest excitement is something that supports us. That's an idea that serves us, because I've seen in myself, but in others as well, this sense of relief, which coincides with a raise in frequency. If you're feeling more relieved and lighter, that's essentially saying that you're doing something right, in my belief. So I've seen how that point and that idea can be one that serves us, but it's almost like I'm starting to realize that it gets to a point where even that conceptualization isn't something to focus too much upon, because that's where you can create this experience where again, you might be, oh, well, this feels like my highest excitement, but then this, and that's something that I've been caught in. Admittedly, I've been caught in that so much. And I think it can actually cause for a sense of uncertainty around what should I be doing if here's the higher dimensional guidance that, oh, you can just keep doing what you want to do, you can just be what you want to be in this moment. But then also, why is there a part of me that feels like this is the right thing to do? So what I'm feeling into right now is that we get to a point where it's not about following one of these ideas.
Right.
It's about presence and flow, really. And you'll know you're tuned into that frequency where you move into your knowing without any. And I want to hear you actually speak to this, if you do believe we can come into this space where we're moving with a sense of knowing, with no thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. I find that a lot of the best decisions we make are the ones where we don't actually think about what it is we're even that's even on the table in front of us, because we're just so spontaneous about moving in that direction that it's what people call a no-brainer. Like, you really didn't have to think, you didn't have to make a list of pros and cons, you didn't have to weigh this one against that one. You were just like, all of a sudden found yourself doing something, and you were like, oh, I don't even remember making the decision to do this. It's just so natural. It just flows so much from what I was feeling and vibrating that now I'm doing it. So that's ultimate. That's the ultimate way to live, for sure. And on our days off, we certainly, when we don't have any calendars, schedules, we certainly do get to live that way.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the perfect segue back into something I wanted to dive deeper into, and it's, what does it really mean to be in a fifth dimensional frequency? And why I believe that this is the perfect segue is what you're describing is a characteristic of, again, this is my take on it, of being in a 5D frequency. And just to kind of reiterate the characteristic that I'm describing is being in this state of being where we don't need to spend time, energy in a space of decision making, mental decision making, because we are so rooted in this sense of presence, flow, and knowing. And the only reason I can speak to this is because I've felt this before. We're being moved, and equally, I would say it's just as true to say we're moving with no thought towards what's the right best move. We're just moving through that experience naturally, and it's a amazing place and state to be in, because I believe being in that mode of decision making is one and the same with, or it coincides a sense of uncertainty. Only when we're feeling uncertain about something are we going to be at a fork in the road wondering which way is the best way to go. So again, I just want to point out that this is a state of being and type of experience that I think I know now that both Daniel and I agree is something that we can be in. And I would say, and I want to hear if you'd agree with this, Daniel, I believe this is the type of experience we're in when we're in a 5D frequency. So let me know what you think about that. And then also, again, I want to hear you speak a little bit more to what does that type of frequency and experience feel like, look like? What is it all about?
The primary difference between the third dimension and the fifth. So we're in the fourth now. Which is like we're like going through border patrol right now to get to the fifth. It's not a long trip, the fourth dimension. we spent a long time in third, and we'll spend a long time in the fifth, but the fourth is a short trip. It's like if you think about the dimensions like a rainbow, and you've got, let's see, red at the bottom, right? And then orange. We're like in the part where red meets orange and creates like its own little color. Mm-hmm. So the third is all about the ego, which is all about survival. It's all about separation. You're separate from each other. You're separate from source. You've got to use your mind and use your actions to get what you want, or to establish yourself as a dominant, as the alpha, so you can, have your choice of mate and have all the gold and the castle and all that stuff. Like, we played all that out already in the third dimension. We've done all of it. We've all been the poor beggar on the street, and we've also all been the rich lord or lady or whatever in the castle. So now in the fifth dimension, we move from the ego, which is all about using the mind and action to create even more separation. Then you build a moat around your castle so no one can come in and take all your stuff and your beautiful mate. And we move into more, in the fifth dimension, the higher self perspective, which is led by the heart, which is all about compassion, oneness, seeing source energy not only as the primary aspect of self. So I'm source, which means I'm infinite, I'm eternal. I'm not worried about my survival. I'm not worried about my legacy or, having as much stuff as I can possibly get, because I'm all about experience now. I'm about experiencing more of myself, but I also see that in every other being. So I see the divinity in this cat here that's curled up on the floor with me, and I see the divinity in you, and I see the divinity in the people who I totally disagree with on every matter that is important in the world today, like race and things like that, all the hot button topics, the gun control, and all the people that I would disagree with the most. I have to see the divinity in that person instead of seeing them as the evil doers, or the people who are bringing us all down. And that's what it's all about. It's not about separation anymore. It's not about drawing lines in the sand and saying, this is red, this is blue, we need to fight and determine, and that's, if you're not in the US, you might not get that reference, but basically liberal, conservative minded people are at each other's throats in this country all the time, on the news, on social media, at rallies, in grocery stores. It's everywhere. And it's time now to say, well, that is me in another body. And when you can do that, and you can really mean it, and you can know that the only difference is that person saw different movies and read different books and was raised by different people and watched different news channels, and that's why they think the way they do. And at our core, we're the same. Mm-hmm. And when we get to that point where we understand all that, that's living in the fifth dimension now. But the fifth dimension literally is that you can have your reality, I can have my reality, and we don't feel like our realities, even though they're different, threaten the others. So right now, so the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died. And so now there's a Supreme Court seat open. and she was a Democrat, liberal judge, and our president is a Republican, and he gets to nominate the next Supreme Court justice who gets on there. And so people are feeling like the right for a woman to have abortion now in this country legally is in jeopardy. And so that issue of should it be legal, should it not be legal, is going to cause people to have all sorts of emotions, and all that's going to get stirred up now. And I forgot even why I went on that tangent now.
I think you're pointing to that there's going to be a difference in opinion, and I think kind of this is where you're going with it.
Oh yeah, the different realities coexisting. So now that becomes important, because if it's a law of the land. Mm-hmm. So then it's everybody's reality. So that's why we fight so much, because like if this person's in office, then there'll be less social services,
and that's going to affect us all.
Lower taxes. And if this person's in office, there'll be more social services and higher taxes. And so if I live in this country, then my experience then has to be based on who's in office, because I pay taxes, or because I benefit from social services, or because I just want to see other people benefit from social services. So that's why we fight, because we believe in a one reality system. But as a fifth dimensional being, there's no one reality. I'm sitting next to you enjoying 75-degree sunny weather while you're enjoying nice cool rain that you wanted to experience, some rain and some lightning and some thunder, and you kind of like just felt in the mood for that. But our weather doesn't have to agree, even though we're right next to each other. That's what the fifth dimension is. It's complete freedom. There's no limitation. There's no having to agree on one right way, one right religion, one right political philosophy. So that's the end of that polarization of people, because everybody knows without a doubt that they're creating their reality, and that what that person wants doesn't mean anything to me creating my reality. You know? So we are in this tricky area as well, as same with be here now, be present, and have a calendar and a schedule. We're also in this tricky space now where it's like, I want to just say, I create my own reality, so it shouldn't matter what the laws are, who's in office, and things like that. But it's hard to not see it having an impact in some way on the consciousness. At the very least, the consciousness of the people is affected by whether a person who's getting a lot of attention is more about bringing people together or more about separating people. So that's what we're faced with right now, in this conundrum of being awake and knowing that we're really at our heart fifth dimensional, higher self, source energy, even beings, but still living in a world where we have dichotomies, where we have choices that we have to make, and things that, like for instance, I know that the rain benefits all the trees and the plants and the grass and everything where I hike, but I don't want it to rain when I'm hiking there, So, I think it's about So then you think to yourself, like, well, maybe it could just rain at night when I'm never hiking, you know, and then I could always have sunshine when I'm hiking, unless I wanted to have that rain experience, and then I could just call that upon. So that's kind of like what we're looking for right now, is a way to sort of navigate through the polarity that we still have, where the trees and the grass and everything else that matters gets what they want and need, and I still am able to get what I want and need.
Right. And I think it gets to a point where, or we can arrive at a point where both those things are one same very thing, because we are so tuned into being, looking upon all that is as ourselves, that the highest choice for me is the
Yeah.
highest choice for the all. And I think that's another great way to describe this sort of type of experience, where, well, there is no difference in what's the best choice for self and for collective, because all is self. Now, something comes up here, and it's, well, actually, I do want to reiterate a few just standout points to just bring emphasis to the the marking characteristics of this. And it's, I heard freedom, I heard compassion, I heard heart center, heartfelt, which I think we might need to dive into a little bit deeper as well. One that came to me, I don't know if I heard you say the word, is non-judgment and acceptance for others, even when that may mean a difference in opinion. I know that's another point that commonly
Yeah.
comes up, right? Being able to stand in our perspectives, see another that may be in a difference in opinion, but still accept them as they are. And the way that's coming through here is not necessarily, not looking upon that as being wrong, right? Not looking upon another and their opinion or how they may even be acting in the world, which of course can be a challenging thing to do, especially when, again, we're in this experience where there's people that are committing, acts that I think on a, we can agree are not of kindness, let's say, right? Not of kindness, not an expression of compassion and love. But in our perspective and in our experience, it's important for us to not place the judgment upon this as being something wrong, as being something that they're doing wrong. And it can get tricky to speak about this, because at the very same time, there's definitely the plane of thought that this is not something we want in our world. Yes, we do want to take action towards improving some of the situations that we're in, and some of the helping our world be free of some of the things that's happening in the world today. But at the same time, I think there's something important in saying that we have to be able to operate from this state of acceptance. And I think that is definitely supportive of being in that higher frequency state that we're describing. Now, I have a feeling that this is going to be a tricky place to maneuver as well, because it's, as a lot of these things are difficult to put words to. But let me see if I want to frame this. In this higher frequency state, we know ourselves to be the creators of our reality. And one of the things I love, the way that you described it, was we're not threatened by the decisions that other people are making, right? Being that we're so rooted in our power as the creators of our reality, what someone else might be doing doesn't threaten us in the same way, because we know we're still the ones in control of what it is that we experience, right? That's how you described it, and I really love that description of it. Now, how does it, if it does, how does that fit into being in a collective experience?
Well, again, there's no one reality. So you don't have to worry about the rest of the reality that that you're creating, because you'll always be in a co-creative dance, and there'll always be a version of another person in the reality that you find yourself vibrating into, that is exactly as you need that person to be,
Mm-hmm.
to help you along on your journey. So it gets actually more complicated if you think in terms of there only being one reality,
Mm-hmm.
than if you think in terms of there being so many different realities to choose from, that each reality has its own collective in it, its own version of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about the vastness of source, or even the vastness of your oversoul, why would it limit itself to just you making a decision to go either this way or that way? And then it's like, I guess, all this non-physical energy has to just go this way. No, there's a version of you that went that way too. That's just as valid as the you that went this way. And the you that went this way, because you were either going with the flow or not. This is an example of me not going with the flow, this finger. I was trying to get too much done in it, and at the last second before we were going to leave for our hike, I tried to get some of the laundry off the floor and out a door, and the door slammed shut on my finger because the wind kicked up, which it never does. It was like such a freak thing, but it was such a great message to me to stop trying to get so much done all the time. So when you go
That's the higher perspective right there, folks. A sprained broken finger is such a great message. Please continue.
And also the other thing I took from that was I can't control the wind. So there's a lot of things I can't control, including the wind. Of course, I can control whether I go in that direction or not, whether I'm going with the flow and I'm moving towards what I want, which is a life of greater ease and having more time to spend with my family. I can go that way, or I can go to the way of like, got to get more done, get more done, get more done. There's only so much time until something happens to wake me up to that, which is exactly, I think, what the Arcturian's message was last night that I channeled. About how the outside world is always showing us what we're vibrating. So the reality that you exist in, where you say, look at that, look at those people out there in my reality being so racist or so homophobic or so sexist, and not realizing that if you're seeing it out there, it also must exist in here. And if you're in judgment of it, then you really need to be looking at it in here and saying, okay, where do I feel like I have this inside of me, and there's something about it that needs to be healed. Maybe I was the victim in a past life of this. Maybe I was a perpetrator in a past life. Maybe at some point in this life, I've had thoughts or taken actions or held beliefs that past version of myself in this life, I still haven't even come to terms with how I could have ever believed something like that. So that's what we're in the process of right now. That's what we're all meant to be uncovering at this point, to get to the place where all of it is accepted, all of it is loved unconditionally, And when you can do it in here, which might be easier, or you can do it out there, which might be easier, depends on the person, then you can no longer need to create that reality where that in that version of humanity, there are people shooting other people based solely on their skin color.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. You know, it's oh my God, so much power in this. And I well, what I want to say is, let's start with this. Fundamental to this higher perspective, at least one of the things that I'm really that's really standing out to me is the notion that, you know, there is no one reality. There's infinite possibility. So it seems to me that in this higher frequency state, we're more rooted in this approach of, what reality am I choosing to be tuned into? And we're looking upon the experience that we're in, the reality that we're in, with a greater sense of attentiveness to what's occurring, and constantly and always bringing that back to, how am I creating this? Why am I creating this? I'm creating this.
Yeah.
Right? So when it becomes that perspective, it's no longer about, what do I need to do to get this person to do this? What is this person doing and how does it affect me? We come from the approach and the perspective of, this is my reality. I'm choosing, I'm creating. Now, I do want to bring in the the notion of serving others, because it's not just about us. I don't want to go too far in the direction of just saying, oh, it's just about you, it's just about the reality that you're creating. But it's also important that we say, yes, it is entirely about you and the reality that you're creating and the choices that you're making in which reality you're choosing, because that's going to dictate the world that you're living in, as well as that's going to be the way in which you influence the collective, and you support others, right? Another way that I like to think of this is, the best way that you can heal another or support another is to heal within, heal yourself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you know, maybe actually we should bring a little greater clarity to this idea of the world being a mirror, and your physical reality being a reflection of what's happening in your own state of being. You mentioned that the Arcturians brought through this message. I'm just going to bring a little bit of my take on it. Everything that we are experiencing in our physical realities stems from and is a reflection of something that is occurring within our energetic fields. And in this way, I like to think of it as, our realities become the perfect teacher for what is it about ourselves that needs perhaps greater looking into, to invoke evolution, invoke a greater sense of understanding, a greater sense of acceptance and love for oneself. And then you actually mentioned another really great point, which is, the things in your reality that you have a hard time accepting and loving, those are the things that we need to especially be looking at.
Yeah.
Because again, it needs to be brought back to, what does this say about an aspect of myself that I'm having a hard time accepting and loving? So again, just to kind of reiterate, that's the way in which we are creating our realities. It's being projected from our state of being.
Yep.
And again, I guess the defining, or one of the best ways that we can speak to this higher frequency, this higher perspective, 5D, if you want to call it that, is a place in which we are more rooted and focused upon creating and choosing the reality that we're choosing. We're more attentive, more aware that we are the ones that are choosing. And it's happening from a place of greater freedom and sovereignty. So do me a favor here, Daniel, and tie this into, because we know that in this 5D frequency, we're not just doing it for ourselves. We're in a mode of serving others. I know this, you know this, but I do want you to tie into this this conversation, service to others.
Let's say that this analogy came to me since we began this conversation. Let's say you and me and a few other people got together and we said, let's climb this mountain. Let's get to the top of this mountain, right? So we all have that goal individually for ourselves to get to the top of the mountain. But we also want to do it as a group. So I could at some point feel like I have so much energy and this huge second wind as we're like nearing the peak, that I run ahead of the group and I get to the peak and I experience that. And I believe that a couple of really prominent figures have done this in our society, where they've gotten everything that they wanted. Jim Carrey, I mean, few actors could claim to have had as much success as he's had. And Russell Brand. And they both achieved this level of fame, fortune, everything that they wanted in their careers, starring in movies and having television shows and comedy specials. And then at some point they said, you know what? I want now to help other people. I want my fame to be about how can I help? So if in this analogy I make it to the top first, there's always going to be that part of me that goes, now I can show the others, well, hopefully that this is the case with people. They'll say to themselves, and I think that so many people I talk to and channel for are saying, how can I be more of service? How can I be more of service? So I see it as a very common trait amongst those who are awake. The desire then to show others the way. Mm-hmm. So I could then run down to where the rest of the group is and say, look, I found this path and it has all these footholds and it's really great and we can do it together, and let's say you had sprained your ankle and I can help you, you can wrap your arm around me and we can make it up there together. And there's something that's just so, as you think about that story, there's something so satisfying about that, about being able to do that. And there's people who will stay with the pack and always be there because they want that communal experience of climbing the mountain together. And there'll be those who do it by themselves and then come back and help others. But I do think that ultimately it's like that's the next challenge then, is not just to have the experience for myself and say that it makes me better than everyone else, but it's about realizing like this is something that I want everyone to experience. And that, I think, is a very natural tendency within all of us. One of the things that is really interesting too is realizing the sort of emptiness of achieved desire once it's achieved. Once it's achieved, you realize it was never about that. It was never about me getting what I wanted and then having it and then living it. It's always about like the experience of yourself becoming more of who you are. And when you realize that, then yeah, you want to see others have that experience as well. I mean, not that you want to necessarily help everyone manifest everything that you manifested, but you feel like, and it is lonely at the top too. I think for a lot of people who get to the top, who make their lives about getting to the top, and then realize like, oh, I can't go to the grocery store anymore without getting mobbed by people. So there is the desire to want to connect, to want to feel compassion. I think when you reach a certain level of happiness, when you get to a certain vibration, compassion just becomes like automatic. You just feel it. You feel it for everything. You know, you feel it for animals and trees and children that aren't yours, and you know, people who are struggling just to survive, and it just becomes so natural. I think that when we're raised, like I was raised Catholic, there's this idea of like service to others as being like something you have to do. It's like, you have to do this to be good. You have to do this to be good in God's eyes. You have to do this to get into heaven. Versus like, just be free, do what you want to do. And then when you're happy, you're going to want other people to be happy with you. It's very natural. You know, Abraham says, give from a cup that's already full. So you fill your own cup first, and then you give from your own cup. Yeah. So I think that, and you don't have to, you don't even have to do it that way. You can give from your half full cup and still feel really good about it and be like, well, now I get to fill my cup up from the place it is now at a quarter full. You know, like I get to have that experience. So it doesn't really matter how you do it, but I think that what's important is that you see it as something that you don't force yourself to do.
Yeah.
You know, you do it because like you realize that it's the only thing that's going to feel good to you now that you realize like having all the money and success and power and all that stuff doesn't really make you happy anyway. So that there's that, and then there's people who have, for whatever reason, they never have the desire for any of that, and they're just always good. And they're just, I remember being a kid and sitting next to this other kid. I think it was like a camp situation or something. And I remember this kid just being so good, and he just was like caring about everybody else and their feelings. And I remember thinking like, I want to be like him. Like he's the model that I aspire to be like. And for some of us, it's just, you have to go through your 20s where you know, you're just like caring about yourself.
Things that 20 years.
Getting drunk or like all the things that you do, and then someday you have some kind of awakening and you get there, and then other people are just born.
We all choose our own journeys, right? Yeah. You know, okay. I think there's some really important lessons that you brought forth here, and as I do, I like to just bring emphasis to the ones that stand out to me. Well, coming back to the cup analogy, I totally feel a strong sense of resonance with that idea that, one, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You had mentioned, okay, if you have a half full cup, you might be able to pour a little bit, but you can't pour from an empty cup. Right. So if we're trying to use serving others as a way to to feel something that we don't believe ourselves to already be in. That can be a hit and miss as well. I believe that prioritizing how we feel should be of primary importance, because, well, yeah, you might be able to pour from a half-filled cup. If you have a full cup, you'll have more to pour. The more you feel full within yourself, the more you're going to be able to give on to others. And another big point that you mentioned that I love is, it comes naturally. Compassion comes naturally, right? We have this idea of who we should be, and attaining to be that is certainly there's certainly importance in this, right? Having this vision of self and being that in this here and now. But I also want to say that expression, that higher expression of self, emerges naturally in the being that is in a mode of appreciation, love, joy, inner peace. And on some level, that's something that you allow for yourself. You allow for yourself through practicing presence. And I do think, again, our actions hold importance. We're not going to be able to feel all these great feeling things if we're not aligning with what we believe to be our highest expression of self. So it goes both ways. How we feel and who we are being in this world, they share a relationship with one another that goes both ways. Who we're being is certainly going to be influenced by how we feel, but also how we feel about ourselves and the beliefs we have around ourselves is going to be affected by the actions that we take. So it's not that one is more important than the other, but I do think there's a great importance in us really zoning in on this message that, start with feeling full within yourself. Know that in your highest state of being, in your highest joy, your highest service, that compassion comes from you naturally and effortlessly. I know this to be the case when I'm loving myself fully. The easiest and most enjoyable thing for me to do is serve others.
Yeah.
So again, I just kind of want to really, really emphasize that point, that this is something that we allow for ourselves, and it's something that should be considered of primary importance. I'm really happy that you brought it up when the question that I had asked was specifically, service to others, because I think this is something that goes amiss mentioning and goes missed being focused upon, especially with the types of beings that I know are tuning into a show like this and is following my sort of content. Like you said, there's a lot of light workers out there right now that the question they are asking is, how can I be of greater service? So know that the types of individuals that are looking upon this content have this very positive intention. But I've also seen in a lot of people, and I sense that you have as well, people that there's still things that need to be dealt with internally with regards to self-love and self-concept. And they're still asking this question, how can I be of service to others? Well, I think one of the big points that we have for all of you is that one of the greatest things you can do to serve others is serve yourself. Daniel, I want to give you the space to just, well, one of my favorite questions to always ask someone is, what's on your heart? If there's anything that you feel called to just share, express before we wrap things up here, please do. I can listen to you talk all day, but we are going to have to cut the stream eventually. What's on your heart, Daniel?
I just feel, well, one of the things that when you were talking about how we're both like bumping into people who want to be of service, I feel that makes me feel so good about the state of humankind and our community, our spiritual community. It makes me feel really good because those are not the loudest people out there on the internet. There aren't people creating memes that say like, I want to be of service, you know. It's usually something else.
I might have to make one of those, but
Or
continue.
some video that's getting
Let's
passed
take
around.
over, light workers. Come on.
I, I get sent from people I don't know a lot of things that make me feel sad and discouraged about the state of our new age community. But then this is what makes me realize that we are coming from the light, and there are people who really get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are people in our community who understand that this is about working on self and about helping others, and helping others to find that peace within themselves. You know, one of my favorite analogies that I always think about, and I always wonder, like, does that person who sent me that meme or that video actually get the ending of Return of the Jedi? Because at the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke is not supposed to kill Darth Vader. He's supposed to save Darth Vader. He's supposed to throw down, and I get goosebumps every time I see it, and now I'm talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps again. He throws down his lightsaber and says, I will not kill him because I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. And he's talking about Darth Vader, who's lying on the ground, missing one hand, you know, at Luke's mercy. And it's our mission to save the dark from itself, from being consumed by the dark. It's not our job to come out with the lightsaber. Is a defense. It's for defense. It's not to go on the attack. So in Empire Strikes Back, he goes in the cave which is strong in the dark side, and he cuts Vader's head off, and the mask melts away, and it's Luke's face. And I wish everyone who, I know like all of us have seen those movies, I wish people really got that when they look outside of themselves and see all the darkness in the world right now, instead of thinking that, oh no, we're supposed to go out there with our sword. And I don't like spiritual warrior. I don't like that term. I don't like light warrior. I don't like any of that, because this is not a war. Mm-hmm. This is a coming together party that we're all supposed to be playing our roles in. And there are people playing the role of the dark right now because that's necessary. If they weren't, we would not get to grow as a collective or as individuals. And so to recognize that our true calling here is unconditional love, it's forgiveness, it's compassion for these people who must have had people in their lives abusing them or teaching them to be racist or whatever they are. We need to be the light and continue to be the light, and know that the light heals and helps and is never there to defeat the darkness. It's only there to balance out the darkness, invite those who are playing in the dark to come back home where there's only light.
Daniel, well, first let me thank you for bringing up this very, very important message. It's something that, again, as I felt in practically everything that you've shared, if everything, total resonance. It's not a fight. It's not a light versus dark thing. You know what? I'm just gonna repeat one of the greatest things that man has ever spoken. Our true calling is unconditional love. Now go out and make a meme with Daniel Scranton as the. We need more spiritual lightworker memes, folks.
Yeah, that's the meme we need. No more Bill Gates memes. I mean, come on, we've seen it.
um, in the essence of speaking to the audience here, I think actually a lot of what you said was to those of you that are listening, because I know the types of people that are tuned into this. There are people awakening to our true calling, which again is unconditional love. There are people that are here with the desire to serve others. And more I'm seeing this. Seems like that's been the case for you, Daniel, too. I also want to say seeing this and focusing on this is the way in which it expands, bringing focus upon the light of, yes, this is happening in the world. Things are improving. There are people that want to serve others, and we are coming together. We are uniting. We live in the world that we believe ourselves to be in. So I also want to really bring it back to that too, that we choose to see this in the world and it grows. But then also I do feel called to express my gratitude to the audience right now and say that, you know, again, the types of people that are tuned into this, I know are coming from this frequency, this space, and it's in us coming together, to watch live streams like this, to collaborate, to support one another, that we continue to rise and we continue to ascend. So thank you to all of you that are tuned in with us at the live stream. I did mention it in the comments just about a few minutes ago. Perhaps I should start making mention of this earlier and throughout the stream, but I did think it'd be a good idea to give the audience a chance to ask Daniel any questions that they may have. If anybody has any questions pertaining, I think, just about anything, please do shoot them in the comments there. We will do a little bit of Q&A if anything pops up. I think I did see a few earlier into the stream, so I am going to scroll back up, and if I do, I'm going to bring them up. But again, if you are hearing this and you'd like to ask any questions to Mr. Scranton, now is your chance. Okay, so I do see one question early in the stream here from Katie. Katie asks, this might be a loaded question. For the sake of time, Daniel, just to put out there, let's see how concise and elegant you can make this answer. And it might be a little bit of a difficult question to answer concisely, but what happens when we don't know what our passion is?
You use that as a sign that you're not supposed to be doing anything. That it's your job right now to spend more time in meditation, being present, just taking care of yourself and your cats, and you know, whatever's right in front of you is what you're meant to be doing. And if you're working at a grocery store, for example, and you're like, well, I'm not passionate about this, you can still bring a high frequency energy to the whatever, even if you're stocking shelves. And every time somebody comes up to ask you, where is something, where's the ketchup, you can get excited about showing them where it is and know that you did something, you helped that person. Maybe that person, you know, was feeling very sad and lonely and just wanted to reach out to another person, and you were friendly and kind, and they're going to go home and they're going to spread that now to their family. And you know, it doesn't have to be that you're building schools for, you know, children in places where there are no schools. You can just be doing whatever's right in front of you with more love and joy in your heart, and make that your goal then for whatever you're doing. And if you don't even have that, if you don't even have a job, then use that time. I wish I had that time right now to just go and like see what I could connect to if I had like an infinite amount of time to connect inside myself like I used to.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I'm so glad that you you answered that in a way that's completely different than any answer to that very common question. I've heard it before. Again, I would love to chime in to this, but again, for the sake of time, I'm gonna let the man do the talking here for the Q&A. Okay, one point I gotta quickly put in there. What you spoke to there brings awareness to that passion isn't just about, or isn't, it's perhaps more truly about the feeling of passion than it is about the physical manifestation of it and what that looks like on the surface. To keep it going here, let's take one more question. I see a couple. Oh, this is tough. How am I gonna pick? Perhaps we'll jump into the comments after to answer some of them through message. I'm gonna let you pick, Daniel. I'm gonna bring to you two questions. You're gonna answer one of them. One is, how do you truly forgive yourself? And the other is, how do you keep ego in check as you become more and more popular in the spiritual community?
Oh, I'm definitely not answering that one. I don't think I'm that popular, honestly. But as far as forgiving yourself, that's, gosh, that is tough. First of all, the first thing to do is to admit to yourself that you feel the way that you do about whatever it is you did. So you don't try to pretend like, you don't try to minimize what you did or said. You don't try to, come up with all the reasons why that weren't your fault or anything like that. You just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, I feel like shit. I feel like a shitty person. I feel guilty. I feel sad. I'm angry at myself for doing that. And you let yourself go through all those emotions. Just let them, like you're wringing them out. You're just wringing them out of that wet sock or whatever. Like a kid, you watch a kid, they feel their emotions and they get on with it. So if you just let yourself feel it all, then you can come to a place of peace where now, okay, I've tired myself out with all that emoting. Really? And now I'm just in this calm place. I'm relaxed. I feel like I've felt everything that I needed to feel. Now I'm gonna drum up some self-love. Self-love being unconditional, meaning I'm not loving what I did or said or loving myself in spite of that. I've felt everything I needed to feel around that. And now I can just choose to love myself. And so you go into your heart and you feel love and you spread that love around and you spread it all over yourself. And now you are love. You love yourself. You are love. And then maybe from that space, you can go to whoever you feel like you've wronged and say, I'm sorry, if I did anything or said anything to hurt you, I truly regret it. I know I've learned from it, and I feel like I've gone through all of the guilt and all of that from it. And I just want you to know that whatever it is that you feel that you want to express to me, I'm here now to experience that. But ultimately, it's going to be something that you might think about again later on. So you're just going to have to keep making that decision to say, okay, is there still something there that I feel, like some guilt, some sadness? Okay, I'm going to feel it, and then I'm going to go back to what I know I want to feel towards myself, which is love. I'm just going to keep going through that cycle until I really do love myself unconditionally. And it's not about whether I was good or not good in that situation with that person or that group of people.
I'm once again in total resonance with the way that you responded to the question, my friend. Self-love is healing, and part of what that means is being accepting of ourselves when we are in the midst of feeling these emotions. That has a way of allowing for them to pass through our experience, feel them, accept yourself in this experience, and that again allows it to be processed, allows it to be released. Because one of the worst things that we can do, because I know we can probably all relate to this, is remaining stuck and trapped and actually spiraling down because we start to judge ourselves for feeling the way that we do.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, counterintuitive. If we feel shitty in itself, well, why are we going to feel shittier about feeling shitty? Why are we going to let ourselves feel worse in thinking that there's something wrong with us for feeling the way that we do? Take that pause, feel the way that you do, accept yourself as you are, accept the situation, how you're feeling as it is. And as Daniel has done a really great job of guiding us in understanding, this is the way in which we forgive ourselves and heal these emotions. Daniel, I told you I'm not going to ever stop expressing my gratitude towards you. I'm going to make you blush even harder than you are right now because I love you. I love everything that you're doing. I love the way in which you're serving. I find a great sense of inspiration in your dedication to what it is that you do. The consistency, that's one of the things that stands out to me about you. Each and every day you can expect a channeling. I've told you this in the past, by the way. Daniel does post a daily channeling. If you missed this earlier in the interview, he does post a daily channeling on his YouTube. She knows that it's time to go.
There she goes.
And it's on his Facebook as well. You're one of the only very few people that I've done the see first thing on Facebook, where at the top of my feed I can always expect every single day, well, 6 days a week. Come on, man, that's 7th day. I'm left empty-handed.
No, I
Step
do
it
an
up.
older one. I recycle one that you need
Oh,
to
but you still
send.
post one.
Yeah.
Of course. So still there's a daily channeling. Consistency, folks. Yeah, I see it each and every day I'm on Facebook because you're one of my see first. So again, I want to say a lot of respect, a lot of appreciation. I'm sure on behalf of the Ascenders community, we thank you for showing up for another episode of Awaken. I do also want to say thank you to the active members in the live stream, even those that just tuned in and were not in the comments. We love and appreciate all of you. It lights me up when I feel that energy, that presence in the live stream while we're going. It definitely, I feel, this greater surge, and it supports me personally in feeling excited and ready to serve. So again, I want to thank all of you in the Ascenders community that showed up with us today. Do know that the energy that you're bringing, the presence that you're bringing is supporting this space. Not only this space, but again, I want to say our collective in the shift that we're making, that we make together. Daniel, one last thing from you. If anyone was interested in working with you, checking out your stuff, booking a session with you, you might have to wait 4 or 5 months. Where's the best place to point them to?
DanielScranton.com.
There it is, folks. DanielScranton.com. Any other links? Anything else that you want to just kind of put out there?
I have a course coming up on the 22nd called Money Mastery, Creating and Manifesting Abundance. And there's a link to it on my Facebook right now, below this interview on my timeline. And it's on my site under the events tab, the menu item events. You'll find it if you want to sign up for that. That starts on the 22nd.
Cool. Okay. And it's called Money Mastery?
Yeah.
Awesome. I got a little interest in that. We'll talk. All of the links that are being mentioned here will be in the description. I will update the description to include them, as well as the show notes on the togetherweascend.com blog. Folks, we love you. We appreciate you. Daniel, same to you, my friend. Thank you again. That's going to be all for this episode of Awaken. So until next time, keep ascending. Senders, that's going to be all for my interview with Daniel Scranton. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've been enjoying the show and you'd like to show us a little bit of support, you can head on over to iTunes to give us an honest review. It really, really helps us out in growing the show and getting out to seen and heard by more people. So if you'd like to do that, you can head on over to togetherweascend.com/iTunes. And one last time, I'm going to put out that invitation. Ascend Academy is uniting and activating light workers. If you've heard the call to serve and you're ready to come together with others that have as well in our united purpose, you can head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com to apply and to initiate your activation. Anyways, Ascenders, my love, my appreciation, my gratitude to you, to all that you are. Until next time, keep ascending.